Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I'm going to show you a bracelet. This was made by Anna in our online fulfillment, and what I'm going to be doing is actually getting somewhat of a herringbone look, but I'm going to be using almost a right angle stitch to do this. It's going to be featuring some of our newer products, including our unique RounDuo beads, which are 2-holed rounds, and that's going to get that middle there of this rail tie. And then I'm going to be using some Half-Tilas. I think this is the first project that I've done video-wise on Half-Tilas. They've been out for a little bit. I'm using the medium blue iris. If you have some Tila beads, basically they are half of a Tila bead. I'm also using 2 colors of 15-0s. I have a turquoise color here, turquoise green, and then I have a Miyuki coating or a check coating of a Miyuki bead in the white lila gold luster in the 15-0. In my 11-0 bead, which on the sample here is that white green luster there in the middle, I'm going to be using the line cinnamon in the Miyuki 11-0. To close it all up, I have a cup button here, and this is the Amber Picasso cup button. And to thread it on, I kind of went back and forth. I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread in a green color to kind of highlight my turquoise. When I'm working with this, I'm going to be working with one size 10 needle. This is an English style beading needle. Pony brand is the needle brand that they are. And I have a cutters here. This is my slip and snip cutters that I like, that give a nice sharp cut. And then I also have a bent needle nose pliers sitting by to straighten out my thread once I cut it. And I'm working on a bead mat, and I also have some super new glue sitting around here that I'll use kind of to glue the ends of my thread. You may also want a thread burner. I have the Thread Zap 2 sitting right near me that you can use as well. But for this project, we're going to be using all the beads at once. We're not coming back, going up, going back, going... Anyway, we are not going up and back and all around like some of the projects do. We're going to be using one needle and about a 5-foot piece of thread, and we're going to be going in one direction. Because of that, we are going to put on our clasp right away. So you do want to lay out little piles of all of your beads and then cut about 5 inches of thread, and we'll get ready to create. I did realize that I forgot to mention what color I'm using, and this is the jade color of the RounDuo bead. When you're looking at Anna's sample here that she made, she actually did a RounDuo bead every 6 little sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So she did 6 of those little railroad areas, and then when we get to the tie there at the end, which is our RounDuo bead, you are going to have one every 4 in my example instead. If you look in the example, it makes a fun turn that basically our Half-Tilas are facing one way, and then they're going the opposite way. That's kind of a fun little look to it. So it's going to go one way, and then it switches and they go the other way. Again, she did this every 6 beads and 6 little raw units. I'm going to be doing it every 4. And then we're going to be decorating the RounDuo bead there with some 15-0s and some 11s. So I have my thread and needle ready to go. Again, about 5 feet of thread. And what I'm going to do is create my loop for my clasp first. So I'm going to kind of push my cup button to the side, and I'm going to put 28 beads onto my needle. And these are my 11-0 beads in that cinnamon color. This is a really pretty palish rose blush color that leads a lot to browns. It's one of those colors that no matter what you put it up with, it matches. So that's why I chose it. The nice thing that I have going for me is that I have the store, so I've got, 6,000 square feet just in our Hagerstown location, which is our headquarters location, that I can pick from. So once I have my beads on to create my loop, I want to make sure that my loop is big enough for my cup button, but not too big that it slides through. Once I have that on, I'm going to take it down to the end of my thread, And all I'm going to do is tie a knot. So I'm not going to overthink this. I'm leaving myself about 2 inches of thread after. and that's just so I have something to hold on to. I'm going to tie a double knot here. I'm going to make sure not to get any of those beads in your knot. Give a nice tight pull, and that'll usually tighten up that loop. Again, I want to make the loop big enough that it can fit my cup button through comfortably, but not too big that it's going to slip off. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is, after I have 2 ties, I'm going to tie one more time. And I'm just going to let that tail hang out there. What I'm going to do now is pick up my turquoise color of my 15-0s. I'm going to sew through my first 11-0 bead that I added. And I'm going to be doing a peyote stitch on the edges here. I'm going to use 2 15-0s, skip an 11, and go through the next 11. So if you have a count of beads, I would be going through bead number 3, coming out of bead 1, going through bead 3. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to force that down. Next one, I'm going to pick up 1 15-0, push that 11-0 down, and pick up the next one. Once I have that, I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15-0s, so you can see the pattern here. Skip a bead. So I'm just doing a peyote stitch. If you've never done peyote, you can pause, go to one of the other videos, but that's going to get the spacing correct. So I'm going to continue with this peyote pattern here, doing 2 1 2 1, adding that little bit of fringe there to the edge, just to kind of make my loop a little bit more unique and a little bit nicer for the end of the design. So I've come full circle back around here to my starting area, and I'm back to where my threads are touching. All I'm going to do then is just kind of reinforce and do a knot. The nice thing with the peyote stitch is that we're actually reinforcing that loop as we go because we're adding another piece of thread. Once I have that pretty little peyote loop that I know is going to fit through my cup button, I am going to get into the actual bracelet. So again, when we're working with the bracelet, it's kind of going back and forth. I'm going to start off with one of my RounDuo beads. And what I want to do is, coming out of my loop here, my clasp, I'm going to add 2 of my 11-0 beads. I'm going to go through 1 hole of my RounDuo beads. I'm going to let that all drop down back next to my project. And once I'm through, this bracelet is going to kind of circle around a lot. So to circle around, you can see I'm kind of coming out right here on the side now, ready to go. I'm going to be decorating the sides with my 15-0s. The 15-0s that I'm going to decorate with are that gold luster. If I use the other ones, we really wouldn't get much of a color contrast. On the sides, we're going to have 3 of those 15-0s. So what I did was I came through my RounDuo, and I'm circling around the RounDuo. You can see I'm going to get it to sit on its side there. And I put the beads just decorating the sides. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So my needle's gone through the RounDuo and back out the other way. 3 more of those 15-0s go on, and I'm going to come out the other side of my RounDuo bead. That's going to put those 3 15-0s decorating the sides. To get back to my clasp then, I'm going to add 2 more of my 11-0s, and I'm going to sew back through the last bead that my thread was coming out of my loop. And that's going to create a little bit of a V. So that's going to get that bracelet started. When I'm coming out there, I'm going to go through my 2 11-0s. So I'm just kind of circling around here, getting everything in place. And what I want to do is actually get to the top of the RounDuo bead. To get to the top of the RounDuo bead, I'm going to go through the RounDuo and out the side, go up through the 15-0s on the side, and then through the RounDuo bead, so I'm coming out on the left. Once I'm here, I get to start adding my little Half-Tilas. So to add the Half-Tilas, what I'm going to be doing is almost like a herringbone pattern look. However, it's 2 holes, and herringbone usually is going to zigzag a little bit, that it doesn't sit exactly even. Anna designed this so it would sit even. So you can see I'm coming out of the RounDuo bead, and what I'm going to do as I'm coming out of the RounDuo bead is I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and then go into my Half-Tila, into that side hole of the Half-Tila. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and I'm going to go into the side hole. The Tilas do have one sided that's a little bit more rounded than the other. I usually don't worry about it. So I'm in my Tila bead there, and basically this Tila is going to sit straight up and down like that. Once I'm coming out of my Tila, I'm going to grab my 15-0 in my blue color. Then I'm going to grab my 11, and then I'm going to grab my 15-0. Much like I did with the RounDuo bead, I'm going to come back down through that Half-Tila, push it all down next to my project, and that's going to get me that first little Half-Tila in place. Once I'm through to that next bead there, I'm going to think of this as not that I'm progressing up, I'm going to almost be coming back down towards my clasp. To come down towards the clasp, I'm going to decorate the outside of the Half-Tila just like I did with the other side. So it's going to be the 15, 11, 15. I'm going to sew down through the other side of the Tila, creating that little trim on the side, and I'm going to add another 11. To bring it all together, I'm going to go through that top hole of the RounDuo bead, and my needle is going to come out. I do a lot of projects with 2 needles. This one could be one of them. I'm just faster usually with 1 needle. And that's going to be my first little step here. To get to the top, in order to add more, I'm going to go through the 11-0 that I added and through the sides of the first Tila bead that I added. Once I'm here, I'm skipping the whole way over till I'm coming out of one of my 15-0s on the other side. If I come out here and I add my next, it's going to kind of gap it a little bit weird. So I want to be coming out between my 15-0 and my 11. That's why we're spinning it around. Once I get it through there, and get a knot there. Sometimes when you're pulling through threads, if you have a long tail, it'll just kind of twist a knot on you. I'll just show you guys how to kind of pull it out and continue to pull your thread. So once I have that little look, I'm going to actually add more. To add more, I'm going to be adding in the same fashion, and right now I'm going in the same direction. So I'm coming out one of the turquoise beads between the cinnamon and the turquoise. I'm going to pick up another Tila bead, put it onto my needle, and then I'm going to pick up my side decoration, which is my turquoise, cinnamon, turquoise. Let that drop down next to my project. So back through the other hole of my RounDuo bead, or I'm sorry, my Half-Tila bead. Pull that nice and tight, and then you can see that kind of herringbone look starting to happen. On goes 2 11s, my next Half-Tila, and my fringe there on the sides. To connect this to the other side, I'm going to go through my Tila bead, and I'm going to go through that 15-0 on what was the left side and the Tila. Give a nice tight pull, and that gets that second little pattern area. I'm going to circle around again. So I'm coming back through. And I want to come out the top, and here's where I'm going to switch directions. So to switch directions, what I want to do is actually transfer the Tila bead so it's going kind of in the other direction. So when you see here is the bead actually, as we're going through, we're going to turn the Tila and do the opposite of what we were doing. So we were previously putting on my 15, coming out the 15, which I got to jump over to the other side. And then what we were doing is kind of repeating the pattern. Here what I'm going to do is jump over so that I'm coming out my 15. And here, I'll turn it for you so you can see a little bit better. So I'm going to jump over right here to this 15, and then I'm going to add the Tila going the opposite direction. So I'm sewing through. And once I'm out that 15-0, if it wants to let me, sometimes it doesn't want to let you go through multiples at once. Once I'm out that 15-0, I'm going to be adding my next little Tila bead and jumping into it. Instead of putting on my trim, I'm now going to put on my center beads, which are my 2 11-0s, and my next half Tila. So this is going to create that little circle there in the middle, and you can see those half Tilas starting to take shape. I'm going to go down through the 15-0 on the other side, circle the whole way around my project. Come out the 15-0 the whole way on the other side. So it's almost like a right angle weave technique. When you pull tightly then, you can see the little change in the direction of the half tiles. Or I'm sorry, the half Tilas. You can use half tiles for it also. I'm coming out my 15-0 here on the side where I started, and I'm going to weave back through. So I'm coming out the Tila on the opposite side. So I'm circling around just like a right angle weave. Once I'm out the side, then I'm going to add my fringe, which is my 15, 11, 15. So down through the Tila on the other side. And then once I'm here, I'm going to get ready to add that second one. So if you want to turn it, that can kind of give you a little bit of a line to follow, that I'm going to be adding a 15 and kind of continuing on with my project. So when you're turning it here, I'm at this step here where I've added that fringe, and then what I'm going to do is add one of my 15-0s here, and then I'm going to be adding one of my half Tilas. I'm going to be adding my 2 11-0s, half Tila, and a 15-0. Oops. And I dropped it all off. Once I have that, I'm circling through to the other side of my Tila bead. And that's where that kind of herringbone look comes in place. That when you're adding those beads in the center, that's how you're getting that herringbone look. Once I'm off to the side now, you can see that more fringe needs to be added. To add my fringe, I'm coming out, so it's pretty easy. I just add it and then circle back down through my project. And even though there's a lot of thread going through this project, it's really quite delicate. The 15-0s, which sometimes are a little bit of a pain to work with just because they're really tiny. They really do add so much to the design. just like herringbone, you want to make sure kind of at the end of each row that you want to give a nice tight pull. I'm going to work my needle back here so that way I'm coming out of this half tile, going down and out and adding my fringe on the side, and then I'm going to get ready to add my next RounDuo bead. Once I'm out here on the side, I'm going to add my side beads, and then as I get to the middle here, that's where I'm going to add my RounDuo bead. The RounDuo bead is always going to have an 11-0 before it, just like we did at the base. So I'm going to put an 11-0 on, then my RounDuo bead through just one hole, 11-0 on, and I'm skipping over to my other half tile. Tila. I keep saying tile. Half Tila. Then I'm going to add my fringe for the other one and doing my circling around. With those 15 O's here, it just wants to knot my thread a little bit. Circling around, continuing that circle. And the reason that we're circling around really is just to hide our thread. I do not like to see thread. So I'm reinforcing it, going up through that 11-0, through the RounDuo bead, and out the side. You can see that little thread gap there. Push it down and pull your extra thread. When I'm on the side then, I'm going to add my little fringe or my little picot trim, which is that gold luster. Put those 3 on, put 3 more on the other side. Circle around, going back through the original fringe, that original little trim. And this is why I like the RounDuo beads, because you really can't get that picot trim look on a one-hole bead. I want to be coming then out my RounDuo bead between the 15 O's and my RounDuo bead. Once I'm there, my 11-0 goes back on, and I'm right back into the exact same pattern, going through and adding those alternating looks of those railroad lines and then adding the ties with the RounDuo. I'm going to continue doing this the whole length of my bracelet, which is going to be for me about 6 1/4 inches, maybe about 6 1/2 for you, since our clasp and our closure does add about 1/2 inch. So continue on doing this pattern back and forth, and then I'll meet you guys up so we can add our Picasso cup button. So I'm here at the end of my design, and mine here is going to be 6 RounDuos long. So you can see it's not going to really shrink up much. I'm getting ready to add my clasp closure. If you get to a point that you're not exactly sure how long it's going to be or how many you make, keep your clasp off and add your clasp at the end. That way if you need to do one more row of that little railroad ties, you can do those as well. Once I'm coming out here, I'm going to continue on with adding my last RounDuo bead. So I'm going to be adding my 11-0 and my RounDuo 11-0, going through the last little tile there. And when I'm through there, coming out the other side, I'm going to add my 15, my 11, grab the previous 15 back, and re-sew through. It's going to get my little trim there. And I'm going circling the whole way around here. And you've been doing this, so I'm just kind of doing this quickly, is that you're sewing the whole way around, coming out my RounDuo bead. Going to continue just like I was, adding my trim here. That little picot on the sides of 3. Circling back around. Coming out the RounDuo on the side here. Then I'm going to do a nice tight tug to make sure that that's nice and down. Once I have that pattern and I'm continuing to go on, add the clasp. I don't want it to sit super close to that RounDuo bead because it's just going to be awkward to put on. So I am going to let it sit a little bit further away. And on this side, I'm going to add a couple more 11-O's than I did on the previous side. On the previous side, I just had 2 11-O's and then came back into my peyote loop. What I'm going to do on this side is add about 6 beads, or actually we'll do 5. So I'm going to add 5 of my 11-O's. I'm going to come up the back of my cup button. When I'm at the front here, then what I'm going to do is actually design and kind of decorate a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to use my 15-O's. I'm using my 15-O's in my turquoise color because I want them to match. And what I'm going to do is come down the other side of my cup button here. So I'm going down that other side of my cup button. Again, 5 more go on of my 11-O's. And again, the reason I'm doing 5 is just so that this button does not sit on top of my RounDuo bead. I'm going to go through the RounDuo, just like I've been doing, almost in a circular fashion. That's going to set my clasp apart. Go back up through, reinforcing. When I come back up, I try, if possible, to grab onto some of those 15-O's. At least the first one. It makes it easier to go around that bend. Go through the next ones and come out my cup button on the other side. You can use any sort of clasp to do this. I just find people have a really easy time putting buttons on. If I was using a metal clasp, I would like to use a wire protector and do the same fashion around it. All I have to do now is tie off my thread. After I tie off my thread, my bracelet is going to be completed. To tie off, all I'm going to do is just sewer's knots kind of along what are called thread bridges, which are going to be threads underneath the beads. I'm going to go underneath that thread, go through a loop that I've created by going underneath, and give a nice tight pull. Go down a little bit further in my project, sewing back through. Might get a little tight down those 15s, but I'm basically following my line that I sewed. Once I have 1 or 2 ties here, I'm going to add just a little bit of my super new glue and cut off the extra thread. Then if you want, you can take a thread burner and burn off the extra little bit. After I do glue, cut, burn, do all of that, my bracelet is completed. So again, mine is going to be 6 RounDuos wide, and then there's 5 sets of 8, so I used 40 of the Tila beads. And my bracelet ended up being about 6.5 that I'm working with. If you know that you want your bracelet to be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, like I said, you can actually add the clasp on after the fact. That way you know if you need to do another section of your Half-Tila beads when you're working on them. But it's really just a lot of kind of sewing around in circles, looking at that pattern that's established, and once you get that pattern that is established, it's pretty easy to keep going. It's a good use of those Half-Tila beads to kind of really show off the RounDuos, and doing that little picot trim on the RounDuos kind of brings them out as well. I actually wish I would have used a little bit darker color here as I'm working with it, but we can always do another one. That's the nice thing when you're making your own jewelry, is the options are endless. Also, because you're only using a fraction of each package or tube that you got for each one of these bracelets, you can really mix and match, play around with colors, switch up your Tila colors. The Half-Tilas would look great also if they went in a graded tone, that they got darker and lighter. If you wanted to do the 6s, that would look great as well. But other than that, it's nice, simple, kind of spinning around, using a fair amount of thread and continuing on to going and building your design. Again, if you need any help with some of the techniques, either the right angle weave that we kind of used, or doing the peyote stitch, or even looking up ladder, check out our other videos as well to get helpful hints on those. You can also visit us online at PotomacBeads.com. There we'll have our list of locations. We also have class schedules for those locations that you can stop in, take a class, buy some materials. If you can't get into one of our stores, underneath this video here is a little button that says show more for the details, and it's links to all these products that you can then shop online if you need to. As always, have fun creating and happy beading, everyone. Thanks a lot for watching.